Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 10 o'clock, which is the start of our first year, which is the Next Generation AgChat. So here today, we have got a panel of four here to run a forum on technology and innovation in agriculture. So the Next Generation group, which I, Edward Scott, am the president of, is the youth group essentially of the country shows and the Royal Show. So we use the Royal Show and the country shows as our platform to reach out to the agricultural communities and bridge that rural and city divide. So here we are today to help connect with our wider community here and really give an introduction of where agriculture is heading and the amazing technology that is out there and where the future of agriculture lies. So for many of you, we'll be covering off on things from different plant genetics right through to tractors that steer themselves, all from the same GPS information that drives your car and finds you on Google Earth and all that sort of thing. So there's been plenty of information flying around here. Thank you today to our sponsors, the Royal Adelaide Show, for having us, and the Royal Agricultural and Horticultural Society for all their support. AMLR, Adelaide Mount Lofty Ranges Natural Resources Group, they're running our Twitter feed today, so if you know of anyone who can't be here and want to be involved, get involved on Twitter, follow us at NextGen SA. And with that, I will hand over to Belinda Kay, our MC, to get on with proceedings. So thank you all for tuning in, and we look forward to an excellent discussion. Thank you.
Well, hello there. It's lovely to see you all. I'm excited to be here. For those of you who I haven't met before, there's a few familiar faces in the crowd, so hello. My background's in plant science, and I studied plant molecular biology at uni, so yes, I am a massive plant geek, but realised quite quickly that I talked too much to be a scientist. So I figured, well, I love the agricultural industry, I love talking, so I might as well go into science communication. So my whole career has been dedicated to promoting the science, the innovation and the technologies in South Australia's agricultural industry. Now today, in preparing, we've got an incredible panel here who are going to share their wisdom with you. But I did a bit of research, and unfortunately the community have some negative perceptions about Australia's agricultural industry. Now there's a survey out there which says around 54% of students think that yogurt comes from trees, which is a little bit concerning. And recently I went to Scotland, and they did a survey of their school students which found around 70% of students thought that you had to kill the cow to get the milk out, which is a little bit concerning. So what we're here today is to talk to you about some of the technologies, what Australian farming's all about, and what makes it fabulous. Now on my farm, I actually have a farm up in the mid-north of South Australia. We have managed to produce more food for you all, so we grow wheat, barley, canola, chickpeas, all types of cereal crops, and we've managed to achieve around a 30% yield increase, so that's more grain, on the same amount of land, thanks to technologies which has come from South Australian scientists. So we use GPS, we use new plant varieties and all types of things to grow more food. And today we'll explore that with our four guest speakers. So I'm actually going to start off with John Rothwell, who's down the end. I'll introduce them first as we go. So how about, we'll just give our panellists a wave, we better make them feel welcome. We have the fabulous John Rothwell, who's actually the Chief Executive Officer of the Royal Adelaide Show. Big round of applause as well. We then have the lovely Corbin Schuster, who's a fabulous farmer from Freeling in South Australia. He's also the organiser for the Global Youth Ag Summit, so quite a feather in your cap there, very impressive. Excellent, thank you. We also have the charming Sir Andrew Walter. He asked if I call him Sir, so I obliged. I like to call him Wol. And Wol, look at him, he's got his farm outfit going, but he's quite the smart cookie. He's actually an electronic engineer. Nice. So he's working in precision agriculture. We'll hear more about that as we go. And we also have the lovely Ollie Mackey. Now Ollie here, I will be sucking up to throughout the day because ladies out there, he actually used to work for Burberry and got a 50% staff discount. How did you do it, Ollie? Anyway, just keep that one in the back of your head. Make him welcome, make him welcome. So John, if you'd like to grab your microphone, we'll just start off. The Royal Adelaide Show is all about bringing a little bit of country to the city. perhaps, John, could you talk about what have you seen the changes been in your time working with the show, as far as what are we promoting here? What's happening with agriculture that you're excited about here at the show?
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're on.
Well, it's not only what's exciting with agriculture at the show, it's also how the show has actually used technology itself. You wouldn't believe that it's only a few years ago, all the tickets used to be manually sent out and applied. We had ticket booths out the front, you had to buy a ticket to come into the grounds. Today, all electronic. In fact, it's better than that, isn't it? You can actually have your ticket on your phone. So we're actually using technology here at the show in a practical sense, right through. And I don't know what we do today without emails and so forth, and the social media to communicate. So it's on that side, but then it's also on the side of agriculture itself. And I had an animal production lecturer at Marcus Island where I was a student who said that showing wouldn't actually exist in a few years. Now this is back in the 70s, because all the subjective judging will be put out and will just be objectively judging. But in fact, here we are today, we are showing, we've got record entries, and the reason we have is that we are using the science and the technology as part of the assessment of our animals to progress them, the same as we are with crops and seeds. So to me, I reckon we're probably in the most exciting era of agriculture. In fact, there's been a few revolutions in agriculture. There was one about 10,000 years BC, which was when went from the roaming humans to actually starting to sow seed and manage animals. And then we had the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century. And then we had the, if you like, the use of science in the 19th century. Today, is it not going to be, for us in the future, the revolution of technology and the use in agriculture and in our communities as a whole?
Thank you, John. So, on the technologies in agriculture, I was just reading some research which was put out by the FAO, which is an international organisation for agriculture. And some of their stats show that as a farming community, we've managed to produce around 300% more food since the 1960s, thanks to new technologies. And that's on the same amount of land grown, which is a tremendous achievement. Now, John used to be the Director of Farms at the University of Adelaide, based out of Roseworthy. In your time working in this role, what was the most exciting technological development you saw on farm?
Well, I think it would have to be in the application of management of crops, specifically down to the square metre or less. I think that has just been phenomenal. When you think back, the early settlement in South Australia, they cropped reasonably successful for a while until they ran out of phosphate. They worked out the science of that, and everyone's been applying the same application across most of their paddocks. Here we are today, able to analyse down to the soil type, but down to the individual square metre in respect of applications of fertiliser, management of weeds, building up the history so that we can actually minimise the use of the resources going in and maximise the yields coming out. Absolutely fabulous technology. That would have to be the best.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Now, John, we've got around 500,000 people attending the show over the next 9 days. What would be your number one must-see for the show? What's a tip for everyone out there?
It would be exactly here where we are today on this stage, not actually seeing us, but seeing postcards from around the world, which is an international standard performance by local and some interstate talent. And last year I had someone come up to me at the end of the production, it was a different production, and said, "Oh man, who do I see about this production?" I said, "Oh, well, it depends what you want to tell me about. Sometimes you have someone whinge about something," so I was worried about that. And he said, "I've been to the 11 o'clock, I've been to the 1 o'clock, I've just been to the 3 o'clock with my kids. Now my wife says we can't go to the 5 o'clock, we've got to come home." Now the same applies this year. The production here of entertainment on this stage, it's not agricultural, but it is about our world as a community and the integration of our different cultures, all in a fun way. So on this stage, 4 times a day, if you're at the show, you must come.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Now we'll just we'll throw some questions back and forth, but I'll move on to Corbin now. So Corbin, you're managing the family farm at Freeland, which is about 60 kilometres north of Adelaide. You produce hay, straw, grains. and you've also got a small piggery. Perhaps just tell us a bit about your operation and what makes it such a great enterprise.
Like you said, we're only an hour north of Adelaide, so we're close to all of our markets. It's a family farm, so I'm the 6th generation. So, I mean, every family farm, sustainability is the key. And the biggest driving factor for sustainability is the fact you want to pass it on to the next generation. So, in all aspects of our operation, we look to manage it sustainably. And we always aim to leave the land in a better condition than that which we inherited it. So that drives everything we do on the farm, from sourcing sustainable fertilisers to minimising the use of any crop chemicals. It's all about maintaining the fact that, well, managing to pass on the land in a better condition than that which we left it. But other examples of what we do is, you mentioned we've got a small piggery, so grain from our farm goes into the piggery, and obviously the pigs have their manure and bedding, and that goes out as a form of organic compost and organic fertiliser. So it's almost completing the loop. So feed goes in and nutrients come out. So that's what we try to do with our whole farm. So yeah, we've got piggery, we've got grain production, we've got hay production. Hay, I think it's just dead grass wrapped in string, but it's amazing where hay can take you. I've just come back from a week and a bit over in Japan, seeing where our hay goes over there. It's amazing. The best thing about agriculture is it's almost a universal language, like music almost, even if you don't speak it. You can go anywhere in the world and you'll find agriculture, and you'll be able to communicate, even if it's by hand signals, as I was doing with a couple of Japanese farmers. It's a common thread around the world, no matter which country you go to, and that's what I love about agriculture.
Nice. So Corbin, I noticed in your resume that you've travelled to Cambodia, to Europe, to the US, and you've also recently returned to Japan. Now we've got lots of budding young agricultural scientists out there. How did you get into all of this travel? What's the tip?
Say yes to everything. Just apply, and there was a movie a couple of years ago with Jim Carrey, I think it was called Yes Man. I kind of took a bit of a leaf out of that book, and I just started applying for everything I could, and I thought, there's so much opportunity in agriculture, and like I said, there's every country you go to, there's agriculture there. So just open your eyes and just get out of your comfort zone. And it's amazing to see. Farming is in every country, but you go from Cambodia, where it's just one person behind an ox with a plough, versus you go over to America, where everything's big, and you've got huge tractors pulling huge implements. But it's all farming, it's all agriculture, and it's all food production. So it's get out there, get out of your comfort zone, and just start applying and say yes to every opportunity, and open every door that you're presented with.
Now I've got my phone up here, and I'm not checking Facebook and getting all social on you. I'm actually getting some feeds from questions from the crowd. Corbin, I'm going to throw one your way, so just excuse me while I bring it up here so I can read it. What are some of the current issues that rural SA are facing? So for you as a farmer, what do you think some of the issues are?
Well, we're competitive around the world. We're producing products that every other country in the world produces. So we have to. I don't think Australia can really compete on price. So our biggest issue is we've got to compete on quality, and we've got to produce the best quality product that we can. And we try and do that with our hay and with our grains and with our pigs. So that's a big issue that we won't be able to compete with other countries that their labour is so much cheaper. But if we focus on quality and producing the best products and become known for that, that's one way of overcoming that hurdle of international competitiveness. Other issues, shortage of rural labour is an issue, I guess. But it was only last week that Case, the big red tractors you saw out the front, the manufacturers of them, they introduced
a proud sponsor of the Grains and Fodder Committee. Thank you, Case.
They are the wrong colour tractor, but we won't go there. No, Case, they introduced a driverless tractor, and I think that's one way of overcoming. If a farmer can do more things on their farm autonomously or with robots, it'll allow farmers to become managers and analyse the data that's being generated on their farms. So I think in one way, the rural shortage kind of pushed us into robotics, and that'll allow farmers and other people outside of agriculture who are interested. I mean, they always say farming's you've got to be born into it or marry into it, like royalty. But I don't think that's true anymore. I think anyone, for example, studied engineering and electronics at uni, and now here he is up on stage involved in farming. You don't have to necessarily be born on a farm to be involved in agriculture. You can bring your outside knowledge to agriculture, and both of us can benefit.
And just a final one. You mentioned before that it's all about sustainability on your farm, and I think for a lot of city people out there, they love hearing that farmers are genuinely passionate about looking after their land and managing the natural resources. So just in a quick sentence, what are some of the things you do to manage the natural resources on your farm? You mentioned before about sustainability and how are you managing your native vegetation, and how are you being a good manager of your land?
So the land is what makes us a farmer. So we turn rain into grain, and the land is what enables us to do that. So what we've started doing is every couple of years we'll go around and test the soil and see how much nutrients we're using, and if we're using too much, we'll start replenishing it. So it's all about when the land enables us to live and work, so land looks after us, so we've got to look after the land. So that's one thing that we've enacted on our farm. We'll go out and test the soil and see whether it's got the right nutrients, and if there's some lacking, we'll go out and top it up and make sure that the land continues to look after us and we continue to look after the land.
Nice, I like it. A lot of farm love there. Thank you, Corbin. Now, as I've been watching my phone, we're having some good participation coming from the crowd. Wal, I've got a question for you. Now, as a good wholesome farm boy raised in Melrose and schooling at Bullaroo Centre, you then went to Adelaide Uni, studied electrical and electronic engineering, and you've worked as a software and programming engineer, all types of things. So quite an impressive resume, thanks, Wal. You will be perfectly placed to answer this question. First, hang on, just let me get to it, excuse me. How do you see drones and other in-manned aircraft being used in ag with surveying and sampling?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a really big topic at the moment. Understanding how your crop's going and where you can improve, pretty big factor in improving yield. So drones are really helpful with that. They allow you to do crop inspections without damaging any of the crop. So you can just fly your drone over, give yourself a good picture, and you might be able to pick up on some issues in the crop before they actually really take hold and cause damage, loss of yield. So that's a pretty big thing there. They're starting to equip them with some really good sensors, so you can actually fly a drone over a field on a pre-planned path. It'll just automatically fly backwards and forwards and then land itself. And then you get the data from that, and it can give you a full spectral image of what your crop is actually doing, how it's performing. And that's one piece of data that's really useful. The future, the direction that farming's going is really focused on data. So the more ways we can get that data, the better. And then having to work out what to do with it, that's the really tricky part. So that's something where people with a science background or an engineering background, an ag background, can really help to take that data, make use of it, and give the farmer the information they need to improve on their crops. So yeah, drones are one really interesting tool that we've got now that we can use to get that data.
So while on my family farm, we've now gone to a precision ag farming system where every metre of land that we own has now been mapped, and we understand what requires more inputs, what requires less inputs, what requires the tender love and care. For you as someone who's working in this precision ag field, what do you think has been the most exciting bit of technology, and what can we look forward to? So I've now got my farm mapped and I'm understanding more about it. What's next?
Understanding the data. That's such a big thing. I was at a conference recently, and I think they said about 80% of modern harvesters are equipped with a yield map, and people have been doing this for sort of maybe 5 years. They've been getting a map of how the crop's yielding across the field.
So just bring it back a little bit. For those people out there who might not have a harvester or know what a yield map is, just tell us a bit, what is a yield map?
So a yield map is it's a picture of your field, of your paddock, and it shows how much grain you got off each area. So you can look down to each square metre to see exactly how well it yielded. This allows you to go out and say, okay, so this area of my paddock didn't yield very well. Why is that? I know that I can get better yield off other parts of my paddock, so why didn't this part do very well? So that'll let you analyse the soil. It might be the soil tests that you said you were saying, and Corbin does the same thing. You might find there's a limiting factor in your soil, and you can improve on that. So having that data available and being able to go out and ground truth it and find out what you can do to improve it helps you target that specifically, those specific areas. So that's it comes back to the environmental aspects as well. In the last probably 5 years, we've really seen a focus on only putting in what the crop needs. Traditionally, you'd plan for a yield of say 4 tonnes a hectare, and then you go, that for 4 tonnes a hectare, I'm going to need to put on this amount of fertiliser across the whole field. So once you put on that fertiliser, if your crop doesn't yield very well, you've wasted money, you've wasted inputs, and that's a product that's in the ground for no purpose. If you can go out and just put the amount of fertiliser on that the crop needs, then that gets used each year. It saves you money, it improves yield, and it means that there's not that residual impact in the soil, so it's better for the environment.
So it's all about producing a sustainable food crop with the least amount of inputs and making it most productive for farmers.
For sure, yep.
Yeah, good. Okay, now, well, I'm throwing you a curly one. So here we go. I know this is a little bit controversial out there, but let's give it a crack. So this year's state budget saw a reduction in the allocated spending in agriculture. What do you believe it will take for primary producers to reverse this trend? No pressure.
So we need to make ag popular. We need people to understand just how important it is for ag to be funded. I just got back, just landed yesterday morning back from a couple of weeks in Canada and the US, and every time I'm over there, it just astounds me at how proud those countries are of their agriculture. You can't go to a city, you can't go to a country area without having ag just pushed in your face, and it's fantastic to see. I'll go to a pub or something here, or just talk to people at a barbecue and introduce myself as a farmer, and you see them just sort of switch off. Whereas overseas in Canada and the US, you introduce yourself as a farmer, and people's eyes light up.
They buy you a beer.
Yeah, they buy you a beer, and that's fantastic. But that's something I think that we need to try and sell ag as not only a really important vital part of the community, but yeah, show how important it is and how everyone needs it. And once we can do that, which is the hard part, how do you do that? Then that will make it not just the farmers that are pushing for ag funding, but it'll make everyone realise just how important ag funding is to the entire state, the entire country, and the entire world.
So just a quick one for everyone on the panel. So my family farm, through South Australian research, which has been backed by state government funding, we've seen a tremendous change in how we farm our land and the productivity gain. So we're actually producing consumers more food, more sustainably on the same area of land. And that's been thanks to South Australian farming. I might throw it to you quickly in just one sentence each. I guess, what has South Australian funding done for you? Well, do you want to kick it off? Have you seen South Australian funding achieve something great for farming in South Australia?
You mentioned it yourself earlier. The plant breeding that we've had in South Australia has been absolutely world class. The gains in yield that we've had from the plant breeding that's been done in South Australia has improved yields just a huge amount. That research, the plant breeding, comes from government funding. So when they cut that, then they're effectively cutting the future growth in yields we've got.
Corbin, how about yourself? A farmer from Freeling, what have you seen funding do for you?
I'll go ditto on the plant breeding. I think it's all about, we only get a certain amount of rain falling each year, and we've got to turn every bit of water into grain. And the plants that we are breeding and that we're planting now, and the varieties that we're using are just so much better at turning water into grain, and also they're a lot more disease resistant too. And I mean, if you can produce a variety which is disease resistant and you don't have to spray it, you've saved money and you're better off really as well. So that'll be plant breeding by far.
Right, thank you, Corbin. How about you, John?
Belinda, what I'd say is that there's a direct correlation between the investment into research and economic development of a state or a country. And if you see the amount of investment that's going into agricultural research in South America, China, we're actually going backwards in terms of percentage investment. So for our future, and our state obviously is highly dependent on agriculture, always has been, and still is today. It's the biggest industry in the state. That's probably the biggest priority in this state for investment for the future. And what we invest today, we'll see the returns in 20 years' time, not in 2.
Excellent, thank you. So I think the message is clear from our panellists, and Ollie, I am coming to you, that a little bit of an investment in research in South Australia goes a long way and has on-farm impacts. Now, Ollie, I just wanted to introduce a bit about you, and then you can have a comment. Ollie's got a tremendous background. I read his profile and almost fell off my chair. He's actually only been in Australia for about 2 years with his young family. And in his previous life in London, he was one of the founders of a game studio that made award-winning games for Facebook and was a digital strategist at the luxury brand Burberry. So I guess my first serious question is, how might I access your staff discount? How good would that be? I've always wanted one of those fancy jackets and to channel my inner Kate Middleton. Oh, she does pregnancy so well, I'm not quite up there. Anyway, focus. So Ollie, I guess for you, you're passionate about the digital space, technology in agriculture, and you've started up a new business called Platfarm, which is an ag tech startup. Tell us a bit about the technology and what you're doing in this space.
Okay, so since we moved to Australia a couple of years ago, we sold up in London and ended up buying a little vineyard just outside McLaren Vale. So I've wanted to kind of move out of fashion and telly and entertainment and stuff that actually is quite faddy. And actually, in the second half of my career, I want to have a lot more of a purpose about it, which is what really, really attracts me to agriculture. There's a genuine kind of reason behind it. And I've realised that really to develop technology for agriculture, we need to I need to learn about farming, so we've rolled our sleeves up, bought a vineyard, just going into our second season. Because I'm coming in from a slightly different angle into farming, hopefully I'm able to bring some of my knowledge and things that I've seen in other industries over into ag. And what I've noticed is there is some amazing sources of data. So things like you were mentioning about drones. There's this amazing imagery that can be captured by drones, but for farmers, often you might, we had a drone fly over our block this year, and that image often just gets kind of left in a farmer's drawer or gets put up on their wall. They struggle to take that data and then turn it actually into action. So I've just gone and made it my business to go and meet lots and lots of developers around Adelaide who are interested in working in ag, and we've been kind of hacking together very, very basic prototype apps. The first one that we've done allows us to spread mulch on our grapevines more smartly. So basically it takes this aerial image that's been captured by a drone, which shows you how vigorous all of your vine rows are, and then that gets sucked into an app, and then our consultant, so our scientist who works with us, who helps to advise us, can see this image from a drone, and she just, again, if you imagine it just on a tablet, she kind of taps around the screen in the area that she wants us to mulch, and then so she's created a very simple map of this part of this block needs mulching, and then when we have a contractor come in with his spreader, he can see on the app exactly where he is and which road he's driving up or down on, and basically the app tells him when to turn his mulcher on and off, so it almost acts like a nav man. So it's doing really, really simple things that makes precision viticulture start, and we need to start it in really low-cost ways and just in very basic ways, and then things will become more and more complex. So that's the kind of stuff I'm just hacking away, sharing it with other farmers, just to get things moving.
Sounds fabulous. So you can see that this technology is a really big trend in Australian agriculture, and it's all about driving these productivity gains and producing consumers a more sustainable and nutritious crop. But I guess, Ollie, one other thing, we were having a chat before, and you're a really passionate advocate for farming sustainably and combating climate change. So how do you think technology is going to help us in farming to combat climate change?
Okay, well, I think there's a couple of macro things which I think are going to happen in South Australia over the next couple of decades, and that's going to be because we're going to increasingly have more extremes of weather. So that's going to definitely push agriculture more and more into controlled environment growing. So basically growing in things like greenhouses or indoor growing, and even in that kind of the outdoor space, we're going to grow more and more under things like shade cloth. We might well even see that in grape growing. I wouldn't be surprised that kind of come January, February time, you'll start to see vineyards going under shade cloth to try and basically take away the extremes of temperature, causing our grapes to shrivel just before they're harvested. And technology has a massive role, especially in controlled environment growing. Because you've taken away the variabilities of weather, and you're often growing hydroponically, so that needs much less water than if you're growing in ground. But if you're building new greenhouses, you can use technology to help you grow very smartly. So they can be rigged with sensors, so that you know everything about your growing conditions and how well your crops are doing, and then actually in the latest horticultural growing, farmers are starting just to actually farm using their mobile phone. So their farms are more and more on autopilot, or they're just able to trigger off actions happening on their phone. And then right where I think this will all head is that people like MIT, it's a university in Boston, they're moving towards a more open source version of agriculture, where farmers are more open to sharing their data from their farms and collaborating between them. Like you might not know that the data on that farm is from our farm, so it will kind of be depersonalised, but it allows everybody to learn off each other. So even in viticulture, like I would love, rather than me trying things every year and I learn and improve, if I can learn off everybody who's growing Shiraz grapes in black cracking clay soils, in McLaren Vale, there's probably a few hundred of us. We will all learn that much quicker and become that much more sustainable and that much smarter if we've got to grow more smartly together, basically.
Sounds great. Now, just to wrap things up, we're almost out of time. The theme for today's panel session was pigs might fly. Now, the reason why that was posed as one of the themes was 20 years ago when we said to a farmer, in 20 years' time you might have a tractor which could drive itself. The response might have been, yeah, when pigs might fly. So what I'd like to do is throw over to our 4 panellists here. In 20 years' time, what do you think we're going to see on farms? What would be exciting? I guess for me, my younger brother's actually a mechanical engineer in ag, and he's working on a new seeding system which minimises soil throw, so that when you're going through with your seeder and planting your year's crops, it causes minimal soil disturbance, minimal erosion, and it plants the seed exactly 2 centimetres below the soil surface. And that technology should be available in the next 5 to 10 years. But for my farm, that's really exciting technology, which I'm looking forward to. I'll throw it over to you. Ollie, we'll start with you. In 20 years, what would you like to see on farm? What do you think we can look forward to?
I think if we took it just around grape growing, I definitely see that a lot of the work that currently gets carried out by tractors and contractors coming onto our farm, I think that probably in 5 to 10 years' time, we'll start to see autonomous vehicles working on our vineyard. Because most of the cost as a farmer of actually doing work, a lot of it is time and people costs. When we've got machines doing that task, they can work more slowly and work that bit more smartly. So at the moment, if we have to spray chemicals, we do it as little as we can, but there's sometimes we have to spray. But we spray ubiquitously all the way up and down the rows. There's no such thing really as variable rate spraying in viticulture, and I hope that there's robots that are going on autonomous vehicles going up our rows, and actually they're only selectively spraying the vines that need it. I'd like to, and I believe that it will be a kind of a combination of the drive towards sustainability and technology that will get interwoven. So technology will actually help us to make farming genuinely sustainable and maybe even like restorative. So, you know, land that might be quite marginal at the moment, might be good to run a few sheep a hectare. I hope that we'll start to see ways that technology will create new forms of farming which will improve that land and actually make it more and more productive.
Fabulous, thanks Ollie. Whoa, 20 years from now, what would you like to see on farm?
The crops are going to be talking to us.
Sounds amazing.
Legitimately.
As long as they compliment me and say I look slim, that's fine.
So we're not that far off it, but that's what we need. We need to be making use of the data that we've got at the moment, and that's the big hurdle at the moment. We've got so much data available and no one has any idea what to do with it. But we're going to get to the point where the soil, the crops are actually going to be telling us what they need and when they need it. So we can be, rather than being reactive and waiting for a problem to occur, we can get out there proactive and fix a problem before it happens. Ed, who introduced us, was at speaking at a conference I was at recently, and the technology that he's using with his company is fantastic. It's just it's pretty simple. It's looking at soil moisture. So it's seeing how much moisture is available in the soil, and you can make decisions on that. And he gave a really good example of that. He had a soil probe giving the amount of moisture that's there, and he said because of the amount of moisture that was there, he knew his crops needed nitrogen, but there's no point just throwing it on the ground and hoping it would soak in because the plants weren't going to access it. So he sprayed the nitrogen onto the plant itself, which added that fertiliser to the crop to help improve yield and keep it going. And that's the sort of thing that's going to become fully automated. And we'll just get a message on our iPhone, on our computer at home or something saying, your crop needs this, go and do it, here's where to do it, here's how much to put on, off you go. So we'll be instructed what to do from the plants themselves.
Excellent, thanks Roll. Corbin, 20 years from now, what would you like to see on farm?
I heard you say when pigs fly, we've got a piggery and I hope to God they don't fly. Otherwise we'd all be wandering around with umbrellas. 20 years from now, if you walk around the showgrounds here, you'll see farm machinery littered around the place, and it's huge. And 20 years ago, there was only little tractors, little harvesters. Everything's getting bigger, because what we're trying to do on farms is get one person to do as much as they can in a given space of time. And I think that'll start to change when we take the driver out of the tractor. And once you remove the operator and run the tractor or the harvester by itself autonomously, I think we'll start to see a reversing trend where machines will actually get smaller, because these tractors out here and these harvesters, they're huge, they weigh heaps of tonnes, they require heaps of horsepower, and if you have a year like we've had this year where it's really wet, you get bogged. So I think in the next 20 years we'll see robotic tractors and tractors without operators become more commonplace. They'll get smaller and smaller, and there'll be more of them. So there's a company up in Queensland called Swarm Farm, which is a really exciting thing. Lots of little robots running around, pulling weeds out or doing all manner of jobs, and I think that's where we'll be headed. It's quite exciting, really. It'd be crazy to just go out there in the ute and just look at your paddock and see all these little robots doing all the jobs that we used to do late into the night. So really exciting times.
My parents used to make me go rock picking, so I'm hoping there'll be a robot. I used to get 2 cents a rock. Joys of farm and child labour. John, over to you. Thank you, Corbin, by the way. John, where would you like to see farming in 20 years' time?
Well, I think what we will see is the technological revolution actually happen. Because I think we're only at the bottom of the curve and we have no idea of what the opportunities coming down the track are going to be. So the benefits coming out of that, obviously in production and efficiency and reducing resources, there's also on the social side, in the sense that, in regional areas and agriculture quite often, we can be isolated in terms of communication and ability to have good data feed. That will all just be resolved totally. And the capacity to share, network with each other, communicate will just be enhanced so much. At the end of the day, the biggest challenge farmers are going to have in 20 years' time is what to do with their leisure time. Because all the wonderful technology will transform their lives, they will be able to put their feet up a bit and see it all happening in front of them.
I think that sounds pretty good. Now, John, don't put that mic down while we're with you. Just one of the questions we had from the floor was, what impact can country and royal shows have on agricultural and horticultural industries? And while we're on this, looking to the future, where will things be in 20 years' time? Country and royal shows, there'll still be a massive place for them.
Absolutely. In fact, in view of our community now being, 95% urbanised, the role of the shows is more important than ever. Because at the end of the day, our community living in the urban society are dependent on food production. And whether you can think you can live without food or not, it's a reality. So the role of the shows in the future is very much about providing that one opportunity annually to the whole community to promote the importance of agriculture and of the quality of food and impact in creating wealth in the economy, which impacts back on everyone. So to me, that's the role. And interestingly, we are working together more and more, both the country shows and royal shows, and there's a really good future for them. There's no question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. So just to start wrapping things up, for those people out there in the audience who'd like to know more about farming in South Australia, I welcome you to come and have a chat to our 4 panellists. And there's also some people down here in some orange hats who are the rural ambassadors of South Australia. And they're more than willing to talk to you. I'm putting you on the spot, guys, so think quick. But they're more than willing to talk to you about some of the technologies, the innovation, and how farming works in South Australia. But please feel free to come up and have a chat to them. Also, Ed, can I get you to stand up as well? Ed Scott's also the chair of the NextGen group, who's looking after the group of young farmers that are driving innovation and new initiatives to support farming and young farmers in South Australia. So come and have a chat to Ed as well. I'd also like to thank the sponsors that enabled today to happen. Firstly to John, the Royal Adelaide Show and the Royal Agricultural and Horticultural Society are big supporters of the NextGen group. So thank you for supporting this group to get their event off the ground. The country shows, SA country shows, not only do we have the Royal Show, there's a number of country shows throughout rural and regional South Australia, which you should get along to and support. They are a lot of fun. My local is the Balaclava Show, where my children are going to be baking this year, and we're going to put a chook in. So we're looking forward to that. And we'd also love to thank the lovely Taryn, who's down here. Taryn, give a wave as well. Taryn's provided sponsorship through Natural Resources Adelaide and Mount Lofty Ranges. And hopefully as a sponsor, Taryn, you've been impressed with how our farmers, without me even leading the witness, I didn't even have to slip them a 50, are all so passionate about managing their natural resources and being sustainable farmers. So again, thank you for your support as well. And just on behalf of our panel, can we please thank John down the end, Corbin, Wald and Ollie for their incredible insight into Australian agriculture. So as I said, thank you so much for joining us today and learning about agriculture in South Australia. We'd love to chat to you, so please come down and we'll be mingling at the front. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the show. Come and see me in the Grains of Fodder Pavilion 2. The Golden Grains, it's a good place to be as well. So thank you all.